From freezing time to the most satisfying whirlpool, here are the most insane Minecraft experiments. Oh my gosh, this is so satisfying. If you summon armor stands at the four corners of a whirlpool, they'll slowly drift inward until they meet at the center. As they converge, they form a perfect circular pattern, and once you turn off the command blocks, the spawning stops, leaving the final armor stands to flow to the middle, where they will neatly gather in a surprisingly organized shape. How many layers of tinted glass can we actually see through? With one layer, it's no problem. The fire on the other side is still glowing bright. At 2 layers, it's a little foggier, but still not too bad. By the time we stack 4 layers, the fire is starting to fade into the shadows. At 6, you can still barely see the fire at the other side. Once you reach 8 layers, you can very faintly see the fire pixels moving. Finally, at 9 layers, the fire is gone, completely swallowed up by darkness. Do you know what this is? It's what happens when you spawn hundreds of items in the exact same spot with command blocks. All their animations overlap, merging into a single warbling mass that looks super trippy. Here's what it looks like with golden axes, ender pearls, amethyst crystals, and diamonds. It's mesmerizing, but also insanely laggy. Will piglins attack copper golems if they open their chests? Normally, if a player so much as touches a chest near piglins, they'll get angry right away. But if you spawn in a copper golem and let it do the sorting, the piglins won't attack at all. What's funny is that when copper golems were first tested in early Bedrock previews, piglins actually did see them as thieves, and would swarm the poor golem the moment it tried to open a chest. By generating a custom super flat world, we can make an infinite surface of a sculk sensors, which looks really trippy. They activate with every step, and create these wavy circles around anything that moves. Wherever your arrows land, whenever you place or break blocks, it's awesome! Can you grow a pumpkin into an iron golem to spawn it? While it sounds like it could work, it's actually impossible for 2 reasons. First, pumpkins can't grow on top of iron blocks at all. And second, even if they did, the pumpkin that grows would just be a regular one, whereas an iron golem can only be created with a carved pumpkin. If we use a command to summon this enderman with a boat on it, we're actually able to ride it! And better yet, whenever the enderman teleports, we get teleported along with it, meaning he can be our personal teleporting taxi cab! Although you can't exactly tell him where to go, you kinda just along for the ride. Yeah, my base isn't in this direction, buddy. Check this out. I've got 2 pistons extended on the same slime block. If I turn them both off at the exact same time, which way will the slime block go? Left? Right? Or just stay in the middle? Surprisingly, the slime block doesn't get stuck at all. It always gets pulled to the right side. However, Minecraft redstone is locational, which means that redstone behaves differently depending on its coordinates in the world. So if I rebuild this setup somewhere else, the slime block might shift to the left instead. This is so weird! Endermen have ultra instinct. If you try shooting an enderman with an arrow, it just teleports away and takes no damage. So imagine trapping one on a tiny island and firing endless arrows from above. It'll keep frantically teleporting around to dodge them, which looks hilarious. But what if we shrunk that island down to just a single block, leaving the enderman with nowhere to go? Turns out, even then, arrows still can't touch it. They just bounce right off. Check out this tiny sleeping villager. With the attribute command, you can shrink the villager while it's lying in bed, and the results are super funny. At 0.5 scale, the villager looks just like a baby villager taking a nap. Shrink it to 0.2 scale, and it starts looking like a little action figure. Drop it down to 0.1 scale, and it's so small you can barely even see it. And if you go all the way to 0.01 scale, the villager turns into nothing more than a speck of dust, something you might actually sleep on yourself. Oops! When a sand block is being pushed or pulled by a piston, it's briefly not affected by gravity. So can we make a redstone machine that moves so fast the sand never falls? As it turns out, we can! By using this trick with a sticky piston and 2 observers to create a super fast redstone clock, we can power our pistons so quickly that the sand doesn't have time to even realize it's hovering in the air. Wow, we've broken Minecraft's physics. I just made the best tool in Minecraft, but what is it exactly? Well, it's not just one item. It's actually a stack of many items combined together. Place several armor stands on blocks, each holding a different item, then break the blocks so the stands all fall onto the same spot to create a super cursed multi-item monstrosity that looks like the ultimate weapon in Minecraft. This illusion will mess with your head. At first glance, the world looks completely normal, but when you turn to face this direction, you'll spot a staircase leading upwards. If you enter it and actually walk up the stairs, you'll suddenly fall all the way back down to the entrance where you started. This mind-bending effect is created using the immersive portals mod. If you threw an invisibility potion at a shulker, the outer shell would vanish, but its creepy little face stayed visible. By spawning 3 of them on top of soul sand and making them invisible, you could make what looked like a bizarre bootleg wither. But in version 1.21.2, Mojang patched this. Now when shulkers turn invisible, their entire body disappears, so no more floating faces. They made the change so map creators could use shulkers as invisible collision boxes without that odd head showing. This zombie has negative 100 IQ. If you build a small house with just a 1-block tall wall, put a villager inside with a bed, and add a door, then spawn a zombie outside, the zombie will first try to climb over the wall to get in. But if you punch the zombie so it turns to face the door, something strange happens. Instead of climbing the wall like before, the zombie will lock onto the door and endlessly try to walk through it, completely ignoring the blocks around it. You can literally break every block of the house so only the door is left, and the zombie will still just keep staring at it with its arms raised up. It's like once it faces a door, its entire brain just turns off. Will an end portal filled with end portals actually work? If you have a giant slab of end portal frames, fill every slot with eyes of ender, and then place the final eye on the edge. The portals in the middle get deleted, and the portal is opened. Start by placing 4 water source blocks so that all the streams flow toward the center. Next, use command blocks to repeatedly summon a bunch of armor stands, each wearing a golden helmet. As soon as they spawn, the water currents carry them straight into the center. The result is a super satisfying flow of armor stands, all converging perfectly in the middle where they'll spin in the whirlpool. Just be careful of the lag though. If you create a grid of pistons and skulk sensors, then fire a single arrow into it, you'll create a super unique pattern that makes me happy. It looks super satisfying. But you can even throw snowballs around to mix up the pattern shape. Oh, it's beautiful. Can you use a piston to place the final block of the wither? If you build the body, place the skulls first, and then try pushing the last soul sand block with a piston. The wither won't spawn because the skulls always need to be placed last to spawn it. Alright, but what if you try pushing the final wither skull with a piston instead? That doesn't work either. The piston just breaks the skull. The trick is to use a dispenser. If you put the last skull inside and dispense it onto the soul sand, the wither will successfully spawn! If you summon a bunch of squids into the exact same block, their tentacles all overlap and form this really cool star-shaped pattern. You can try the same thing with glow squids, and the result is even more stunning. The glowing tentacles create a bright, radiant star. What's interesting is that this stack of squids doesn't behave the way you'd expect. You can actually push the whole cluster around without it breaking apart. But here's the best part. If you mix normal squids and glow squids in the same block, their tentacles blend together, creating a glowing, multicolored star pattern. Is this block 3D or 2D? At first, it looks like there's a floating note block in the corner of the room, but something feels off. When you walk backward, it looks even stranger, almost like it's not supposed to be there, but it's actually just an illusion. Get closer, and you'll see it's just 3 note blocks cleverly placed in the walls and ceiling, tricking your eyes into seeing a floating cube. Regular stained glass still lets sunlight through, which means zombies and skeletons burn just like normal. Only tinted glass is able to protect undead monsters from the sun. But what if you stack stained glass over and over until it's so dark you can't even see through it? Surely that should block the sun, right? Well, even after piling up more than 20 layers, leaving nothing behind but a pitch black void, the zombies still burn. No matter how many layers you use, stained glass will never stop the sunlight. All that glass, completely wasted. Can a wolf teleport over the world border? The world border normally can't be crossed, and even if you use cheats to go over, you can't really place any blocks or do anything. If you swap back to survival mode here, you'll start taking damage. But what about a tamed wolf? Will it teleport to you if you go outside the border? The answer is yes! And the best part, mobs don't take border damage. So while you're slowly dying, your fluffy little buddy will be completely fine. Flip the first lever and it pushes a single slime block. Flip the next one and now 12 slime blocks move at once. But if you try to activate this giant layer of slime blocks, the piston won't budge. It's simply too many blocks to push. However, if you use a mod that raises the piston push limit, you can move the entire massive structure at once. And it looks incredible. Which spreads faster, oxidizing copper or grass blocks? Since copper takes ages to oxidize, while grass spreads pretty quickly, you'd think grass would win every time. But copper doesn't rely on being next to another oxidized block. Any copper block can randomly oxidize on its own, no matter where it is. That means the very last copper block could finish oxidizing before the first grass block even spreads once. So depending on luck, sometimes grass wins, and other times copper pulls off a surprise victory. What happens if you eat a chorus fruit in an empty world? Normally it teleports you up to 8 blocks in any direction, but what if you're standing on a tiny tiny floating island that's smaller than that. It turns out that the chorus fruit is smart. It only teleports you to solid ground, so it will never throw you off the edge. And if you remove the whole island so you're standing on just one block, the chorus fruit can't find anywhere safe to send you. In that case, it just fails and you simply eat the fruit without moving at all. Create a giant floor of sculk sensors, then place a layer of pistons directly on top. If you throw a single snowball at the edge, it triggers the sensors and pistons, sending out a beautiful ripple effect. When the pistons retract, they make noise that reactivates the sensors, causing a repeating wave across the entire build. And if you start tossing snowballs randomly, you'll get bursts of waves rippling in every direction. It looks incredible! What's wrong with this armor stand? It looks like it's got extra thick, rounded off limbs? Well, it's actually just hundreds of armor stands all summoned in one space, offset just enough to make a rounded appearance. It's a really bizarre sight to see in-game, and makes me feel like I'm playing with some sort of super HD texture pack or something. How was this impossible triangle portal made? At first glance, it looks like some kind of cursed mod, but it's actually just a clever illusion. Build a simple obsidian frame like this. Next, use command blocks to place a few portal blocks only along the bottom edge of that frame. On their own, this doesn't look like much, but when you stand in just the right spot and tilt your camera downward, the frame and the portal blocks line up perfectly, creating the illusion triangular portal. Did you know that most mobs actually have a hidden hand slot? With commands, you can give them items, even ones that never normally hold. So of course, the big question is, does a totem of undying work on them too? Give one to a pig, and even though you can't see it in its hand, the totem still activates when it dies. Pandas can hold it too, though they'll spend half the time trying to eat it, and sure enough, the totem saves them. And it gets crazier. It even works on the wither, which is awesome, if not a little terrifying. There are some exceptions though. For example, dolphins immediately throw away any item they hold, so the totem never has a chance to work. But the ultimate test is the Ender Dragon. And unbelievably, yes, even the dragon can be saved by a totem of undying. Here's a cauldron full of tiny endermen. Normally, endermen take damage in water, so what happens if we fill the cauldron up? Surprisingly, nothing! The water inside a cauldron doesn't count as real water, so the endermen don't take damage, and they don't even suffocate. The same thing happens with powdered snow. It doesn't hurt them at all. But lava in a cauldron? That'll still burn them. Will a trident whirlpool work? By placing water blocks 7 blocks away from the center, you can create a whirlpool that spins mobs and items. But if you dig out the middle and place soul sand blocks at the bottom to create a bubble stream, will you be able to make a trident whirlpool? Well, tridents are affected by soul sand. They won't spin like dropped items do. What happens if you summon a creeper with a totem of undying? Since a creeper can only explode once, you'd think the totem would save it when it blows up. But if you give one a totem with commands and let it explode, nothing happens. The totem doesn't trigger at all. That means Minecraft doesn't actually count the explosion as a death. And it makes sense, because exploding creepers don't drop gunpowder or experience either. Can llamas spit through different obstacles? Even though llamas look passive, they're actually neutral mobs, meaning they can spit to deal damage. But what kinds of blocks can stop their spit? If we test with weeping vines, the spit passes right through. With a cobweb wall, the same thing. Even a wall of lava doesn't stop it. The spit still flies right through and hits you. However, a solid block like glass panes will stop the llama's spit, and it won't even try to spit at you. Which Minecraft projectile is fastest? We have a regular arrow, a snowball, and a fire charge in dispensers. If they all get shot at the same time, we can watch back in slow motion and see that the fire charge is in first, with the snowball right behind, and the arrow in dead last. What happens if you splash a fish with a level 100 jump boost potion? Normally, jump boost makes players and mobs leap way higher than usual, but a fish on land doesn't exactly jump, it just kind of flops around. So when you throw the potion, nothing happens at all. The fish just keeps flopping at the same tiny height as before. It doesn't matter if it's a pufferfish, salmon, or tropical fish, they all completely ignore the effect. Will a redstone signal work past the world border? Since players can't normally interact with blocks outside the border, it makes you wonder whether redstone still functions there. If you build a long redstone line and then shrink the border so part of it extends outside, something interesting happens. When you flick the lever, the redstone dust does get powered across the border, but components like pistons won't activate. Now if you expand the border again, the piston will extend when updated. And if you shrink the border once more and turn off the redstone, the piston stays stuck in its powered state. So while redstone dust can carry a signal through the border, it can't actually trigger components outside of it. Can the end portal break the nether portal? Pretty much any block you place inside of an end portal gets completely deleted when the portal gets activated. But there are certain unbreakable blocks that can't be obtained in survival. So are these also broken by the portal? We'll place every type of command block, the nether portal block, and hey, why not a literal end portal frame? As you can see, when the portal is activated, every block is destroyed! Unfortunately, it doesn't drop these blocks in item form, so they're still unobtainable in survival. What happens if you throw an invisibility potion at the Ender Dragon? Normally, any mob splashed with invisibility turns invisible, but the dragon is different. Since it's a boss mob, the potion has no effect at all. The dragon is completely immune to invisibility! And it's not just the dragon. The Wither ignores invisibility potions too. But when you try the same thing on other powerful mobs, like the Elder Guardian or the Warden, they actually do turn invisible. So it seems Mojang decided it so that only the major boss mobs are unaffected by invisibility. Which of these blocks can spiders climb? First, we'll try with glass, and yep, the spiders can climb it. Next, if we try ice blocks, the spiders can climb those too. But when we try drip leaf blocks, the spider can't climb the stems at all. The same goes for signs. No climbing there either. However, if we place down honey blocks, the spider can climb them and kill us! How far can a llama actually spit? From 5 blocks away, it'll easily hit you. Move back to 10 blocks, and it still lands the shot. Even at 15 blocks, the llama somehow nails you again. But once you step back to 16 blocks away, you're finally out of range. The llama won't spit at all. That's like 15 blocks is the maximum. If you spawn a villager in the center and then use the /tick freeze command, you can fire a ton of arrows directly at it. Once you're happy with the giant wall of arrows, run /tick and freeze, and all the arrows will hit the villager at the exact same time. You'd expect the villager to be instantly destroyed, but somehow it survives! It's not because the villager is a secret superhero, it's because of invulnerability timers. Whenever a mob or player takes damage, they flash red and become invulnerable for about half a second. During that time, most other damage sources are ignored. So even if dozens of arrows land at once, only the single strongest hit is counted, while the rest get ignored. This trap is 200 IQ. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a simple button on a wall. But press it and boom! You've triggered a TNT trap. Here's how it works. Place a TNT block, then an item frame with a button on top, and put map art inside the frame. If the map art perfectly matches the stone texture, it hides the TNT completely. So when one of your noob friends tries to open the iron door, they'll just blow themselves up. Alright, who am I kidding? No one is falling for this, but it's still kinda cool. Look at me! I'm sleeping during the day! Well, this is actually a Minecraft trick with beds. If you place 5 snow layers, then a minecart, and finally a bed on top, you can hop into the minecart and your character will be completely hidden under the bed sheets, making it look like you're sleeping. Or you might also look like a severed head resting on a pillow, which is a little creepy. Which is faster, mycelium or grass? The race begins, and both grass and mycelium quickly spread past the bedrock. But once they hit the water obstacle, they both get stuck. So I have to add an alternate dirt path for them to keep going. They finally reach the finish line, and grass takes the win! But here's the catch. Grass and mycelium actually grow at the same random pace, so this race was really just a battle of luck. When pointed dripstone falls, a single block can deal up to 40 damage to mobs and players. So how many would it take to kill the Ender Dragon? Since the dragon has 200 hearts, you'd think just 6 falling dripstones would do the trick. But if we test it, nothing happens. The dripstone just falls straight through the dragon's body without dealing any damage at all. And honestly, it makes sense. The Ender Dragon can fly through blocks and even destroy them. So why would a pointy rock be any different? What happens if you splash a slime or magma cube with a jump boost 100 potion? Once the potion hits, the slime rockets high into the sky, far higher than normal. When it comes crashing back down, it splats apart into smaller slimes. Check out this dancing iron golem. By setting up a redstone clock, you can make an iron golem statue that never actually spawns. The pistons keep pushing the body and arms back and forth, so they never line up correctly. The result is a super cursed statue that looks like a dancing iron golem. This villager has negative 1000 IQ. At night, villagers try to pathfind to the nearest bed they can sleep in. But in this setup, the entrance has a pressure plate connected to a piston. Every time the villager steps on the plate, the piston instantly closes the doorway, blocking the path. The villager gives up, walks away for a moment, the piston retracts, and then he tries again, only to repeat the same mistake over and over. Even if you add another open entrance behind the house, the villager will keep going for the closest path, only to keep getting blocked by the piston trap. Have you ever seen a rainbow made out of mobs? It looks completely cursed, but it's actually pretty simple to make. With command blocks, you can summon pigs, cows, and turtles at the exact spot an armor stand is facing. Then, by slowly rotating the armor stand's direction, each new mob spawns at a slightly different angle. Keep this process going, and eventually you'll create a curved rainbow made out of hundreds of creatures. And the funniest part, if you toss potions of harming at it, all the mobs start screaming in unison. Or if you really want screaming, pour some lava over the rainbow. Haha! This is so funny! Normally, tipped arrows give off potion particles based on their effect, but spectral arrows are different. they leave behind a glowing firework trail when shot. So if you fire a ton of them into the same spot, then set off TNT to explode them all at once, you get a huge sparkling particle cloud. Basically a supercharged firework. This is the fastest way to build a nether portal. By using a bunch of waterlogged stairs and dispensers filled with lava, we can have our portal built in a single press of a button. Now, is there any point in doing this? No. The time and effort it would take to build the machine is way harder than just building it some other way. But hey, it's pretty cool to watch it happen. Is this Ender Pearl whirlpool real? If you build a whirlpool and place bubble columns underneath, can they actually spin an Ender Pearl around? Turns out, yes. Toss an Ender Pearl in and it'll start circling the whirlpool. For the best view, disable particles so the projectiles are easier to see. And it's not just pearls. Try snowballs for a mini snowstorm, or splash potions for a colorful swirl. The coolest part is mixing them all together. The projectiles tend to clump toward the center, and they still spin around and look quite cool. If you try to ride a boat on lava in Minecraft, it immediately breaks and you sink into the lava. Now, you might think summoning an invulnerable boat would solve the problem, but it just sinks straight down into the lava. The real trick is to summon a boat that is both invulnerable and has no gravity. With that setup, the boat floats above the lava, letting you ride quickly across the fiery waves. Can you bounce on a slime mob? We know slime blocks make you bounce and stop fall damage, so does the same thing happen with a slime mob? It look almost the same, so it sounds like it should work. But when we test it out, yeah, not at all. You just take full fall damage. Mojang really should add this as a feature. What happens if you give a witch a totem of undying? At first, the witch will hold it just fine, but the moment you damage her, she instantly swaps to a potion of healing, and the totem just disappears. That means you can kill her without the totem ever saving her. Now, dolphins are different. If you give one a totem, it immediately drops it, letting you finish it off. But there's a trick. You can summon a dolphin with no AI, and then it won't drop the totem at all. The witch, though, is stubborn, even with no AI. If you damage her, she still swaps to a healing potion instead of using the totem. So the only way to actually make a witch pop a totem is to kill her in one single hit. Most players know that if you give a fox a totem of undying, it'll actually use it to save itself when you try to kill it. But foxes can hold way more than just totems. For example, if you give a fox a mace, something hilarious happens. It'll leap into the air to attack a chicken, and that jump actually triggers the mace's ground slam. Total overkill on the poor chicken. This machine dishes out instant karma. When a pillager tries to shoot a villager, its arrows hits a target block, which triggers a dispenser that fires back and kills the pillager. You can even use it yourself. Stand behind the target block, and when a skeleton shoots at you, the dispenser activates and gives the skeleton instant karma. This will satisfy your brain. When you build an iron golem, the blocks shatter apart and the golem forms underneath. Take down the golem and it collapses back into scattered pieces, almost like it's dismantling itself. Destroy an anvil, and instead of simply disappearing, it crumbles into shards right in front of you. Breaking solid blocks like diamond, gold, or iron will also explode into shimmering fragments, each one bouncing away in a way that makes your brain feel so good. This is all done using the physics mod. Will the Riptide enchantment work inside a cauldron? Normally, the Riptide enchant lets you launch yourself with a trident, but it only activates if you're in water or if it's raining. So, what happens if you stand in a cauldron filled with water? After filling it up and stepping inside, you'll notice you can't actually pull back the trident. Okay, but what if you charge the trident while standing in water, then step into the cauldron before releasing it? Unfortunately, that still doesn't work. Riptide just won't activate in a cauldron. What happens if you shoot a crossbow with multi-shot 255? Normally, multi-shot only lets you fire 3 arrows at once, but if you use commands to push it higher, things get crazy. At level 2, the bow fires 5 arrows. Level 3 bumps it up to 7. Keep going, and by level 10, you're firing 21 arrows all around you. Push it to level 100, and suddenly you've got a perfect ring of arrows circling out from your bow. And finally, if you max it out at multi-shot 255, you unleash an insane storm of arrows, 511 of them, forming a dazzling circle pattern that completely floods your screen. When you pull this lever, it activates a command that creates an endless stream of experience orbs, basically turning it into an infinite XP fountain. The orbs shoot out from the tip of the lever and float toward you, following wherever you move. As soon as you start collecting them, you'll hear that classic XP chime over and over, and it's insanely satisfying. But if you let the fountain run too long, the orbs begin piling up and might cause you to crash. Since creepers are scared of cats, we can trap them inside this note block floor and add a few cats inside. The cats will chase the creepers around and create music as they run. This must be what fear sounds like. When you attach a sign to the wall, it might appear to be placed on it, but if you look closely, there's actually a small gap between the sign and the wall. The small gap can even be right-clicked on to add text there. nether. Bedrock is impossible to mine, but if you throw bedrock at a cactus, it'll actually destroy it. Netherite also is impossible to burn, but will get deleted by a cactus. The true strongest item is apparently these plants. When Skulk breaks, it drops some experience orbs. To break it instantly, use an efficiency 5 hoe, and you'll be able to shred through it all and experience these satisfying sounds. Dolphins are very helpful, but they used to break the game. If you had them in a water stream next to a nether portal with items nearby, once the dolphin was freed, it'd pick up the item and duplicate it. This was a pretty unique way to duplicate. If you drop anvils over an entire village, will anyone survive? When you update one of the anvils, all the rest will come crashing down in a cascading pattern. All villagers in the open will be crushed. In the end, only villagers inside of the houses and iron golems survived. There's a way to walk through walls. If you look downwards and throw an ender pearl, you can teleport straight through them. It's a handy trick if you ever get put inside an obsidian box or want to get through some iron doors. Adventure mode makes it impossible to break blocks. Well, sort of. If you begin breaking a block in survival mode and then switch to adventure mode, attempting to break the same block shows the animation. However, you won't actually be able to destroy the block, just the animation plays. This surprisingly also works in spectator mode and should not be in the game. This is how you can share a bed with a villager. Normally, breaking a bed with a sleeping villager wakes them up and makes them leave. But if you break and place a bed at the same time in creative mode, the villager will keep sleeping, and you can click on the bed to join them. It doesn't look very comfy though. Doors have small holes in them, but trying to shoot arrows through them doesn't work. You can even see the arrow poking through the other side. Trying it on fences and trapdoors also doesn't work. However, shooting arrows under the gaps of beds and the gap between cauldrons actually works. But what's even crazier was the hanging root glitch. Just look at it. The dropped item was as big as a fully placed block. Luckily, in the next update, it was fixed, and the hanging root was brought to normal size. With just a fishing rod and minecart, you used to be able to soar through the sky. You could do this by right-clicking the rod super quickly, and it'd grab the minecart and continuously take you higher into the sky. Wet sponges instantly evaporate in the nether, so a fascinating experiment you can do is using commands to set block water in the nether above a sponge. It'll cause the water to infinitely flow downward and get evaporated by the sponge. If you set a ton of skulk sensors and iron trapdoors on top, you can create a beautiful wave. Throwing a single snowball down will create a ring of trapdoors opening and closing. When the trapdoors close, they create sound, reactivating the starting skulk sensors and creating an infinite loop. We end up getting these crazy patterns. Eating a chorus fruit teleports you up to 8 blocks away. However, most people don't know that chorus fruit can actually be used to teleport outside of the world border. You can even set the world border really tiny, and you'll be sent straight outside. When you look into an enderman's eyes, it'll become enraged and charge at you. But what if you're looking through glass? The enderman won't react. Mobs can't see through glass and treat it like any other opaque block. This also works with trapdoors, fences, and even tall grass. However, if you look through water or lava, the enderman will notice and get angry. I have no idea how it sees me through lava. If you enchant your crossbow with piercing level 127, you can shoot through a ton of mobs. Just spawn a bunch of snow golems in a line, aim the bow straight, and slice through them all! This giant pillar of dripstone can break in seconds. If I activate this observer, all the dripstone will gradually break all the way up into the sky. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen! The end portal destroys all blocks inside when you light it. But what if villagers are sleeping inside? Will they be deleted as well? Once the final eye is put in, all the villagers and beds disappear. When we enter the end, however, we'll find the villagers and even some broken bed items. Some blocks like bamboo will completely collapse if you punch the bottom block. So if you make a really tall one and break the stem, the entire tower will collapse. This can be done with other blocks too, like cacti, sugarcane, and my personal favorite, dripstone. So satisfying. Can a bee lift up an iron golem? By running the following command, you can attach an iron golem to a bee. At first, it seems like the bee can't fly, but if you lure it into the air with a flower, you'll see it carrying the entire golem skyward. You can even attach multiple golems, and the tiny bee will somehow carry all those heavy golems. If you're falling from the sky and don't have any items, how do you survive? Well, all you have to do is disconnect right before hitting the ground, and once you enter the world again, you'll be granted a brief period of invincibility. This glitch can also be used to escape lava by disconnecting and rejoining every few seconds for invincibility. Gravel can be super annoying when mining. However, if you place a torch underneath, the gravel will all just turn into items. Wait, how is this still going? Did you know mobs can ride axolotls? If you spawn a villager on top of one, it'll speed around pretty fast. But if you summon some zombies on axolotls, they'll chase the villagers even faster. To top it off, summoning iron golems on axolotls will cause them to chase and take out all all the zombies. This whole situation just looks so cursed. Before 1.20, anvils used to crush items, but something lesser known was that if an anvil fell on a shulker box, just the box would break, and all the items would explode outwards. If you dropped shulker boxes full of items down a tube, and then dropped an anvil on top, it'd cause all the boxes to break, and the items would explode outward like a pretty fountain. Minecarts are able to snap to rails below, even if a block is in the way. The minecart can snap through blocks like slabs, soul sand, farmland, and even chests. It feels like you're hacking with this glitch. If you place a lot of enchanting tables, the books will all follow you around. Looking at the tables from above, you can see a nice pattern. Minecraft has had a ton of X-ray glitches that have gotten patched, but the one that's lasted the longest is this one. If you go in F5 and increase your FOV, you can see through walls. If you want an even better view, you can shrink your Minecraft window and you'll be able to see way more. When you try to sleep in the nether, it'll explode. But there's actually a way to sleep here. Players can't use the beds, but villagers can. They'll sleep just like normal if it's night in the overworld. Ever wanted a flying pet? Well, when the strider was first added, you could fishing rod it into the air, and when you got on, the strider would stay in the sky, and you could waddle above your world. Torches need a supporting block, or else it'll break. But what if the support block is another torch? To make this cursed design, just place 2 torches on a wall and use a debug stick on them until they're both against each other. You can now update blocks around the torch, and they still won't break. Everyone knows ice makes the ground slippery, but if you place carpet on top of it, you'll still be sliding. What's even more insane is that you can put entire slabs on top and you'll still slide. What is this, Mojang? There's a way to make your fishing rods unbreakable. All you have to do is cast your line normally, and once the fish starts coming in, just swap to a normal fishing rod. This way you can get faster fishing rates without losing any durability on your enchanted rod. Lightning is notorious for burning down precious builds, but it also has a strange feature. If bamboo gets struck by lightning, it catches on fire. But if candles get struck, nothing happens. And if campfires get struck, a fire block is just on top. What in the world? Before the world border existed, there were the far lands. It looked like a giant ant farm and was way cooler than what we have now. It appeared 12 million blocks away from spawn and was well worth the travel. One player even spent 3 years traveling to the far lands on foot. That's next level dedication. Lava in the nether actually flows further than in the overworld, but that's not the only way it's different. It actually flows out faster too. But which do you think is faster? Water in the overworld or lava in the nether? I tested it and it turns out the water is clearly faster. Can tiny skeletons kill me? You're able to shrink skeletons down with the slash attribute command, and they look so cute. However, when you enter survival mode, the skeletons will still shoot regular sized arrows that hurt like normal. Owie! If you splash invisibility on a pig, the saddle can still be seen. While this may seem normal at first, if you do the same thing to a horse, the horse's saddle becomes invisible. If you try to spawn both an iron and snow golem at the same time, only the snow golem will get spawned. What is the smallest gap you can walk through? We can easily fit through 0.9 blocks, but how about 0.8 blocks? Yep, still works. At 0.7 blocks, it starts getting tight, and by 0.6 blocks, we can't fit anymore. But if we increase it to 0.61 blocks wide, we're able to just barely fit through the gap. You can recreate this in survival mode using walls, fences, and slabs to make a tight gap you can just barely fit through. Using commands, you can place down only the top or bottom parts of a bed, but can villagers still sleep in them? Surprisingly, villagers can go to sleep with only the top half of the bed, but not with the bottom. You can even place blocks like lava, bedrock, ice, and a grindstone below the top bed block to create some painful designs. What's even cooler is that the player is able to enter the top parts of these beds just like the villagers. Lava and boats don't mix. However, if you hold out a warped fungus on a stick, nearby striders will come towards you, and you can ride your boat on top of them. While this isn't quite riding on lava, it's the closest thing you'll get in survival. You can break Minecraft with just potatoes. If you drop a potato on top of a bubble stream, it'll bounce up and down. On its own, that won't cause much lag. But if you use command blocks to summon tons of potatoes, the sheer number of entities and particles will quickly overwhelm the game, eventually causing it to crash. The potato stream does look pretty cool though. One of the most iconic ways to break Minecraft is just by using an ender pearl to get on the nether roof. It's extremely easy to do and will let you quickly travel across the world. Here's how to break a flint and steel instantly. With command blocks, you can constantly replace the stone blocks in front of you. Angle yourself just right, hold down right click, and the flint and steel will break almost instantly. Most players build huge and elaborate contraptions to crash servers, but what if you could do it with just a crafting table and iron ingot? Well, YouTuber Horizon lagged a pay-to-win Minecraft server doing just that. An auto-clicker was used to spam the quick craft menu, which caused the entire server to lag and eventually crash. Don't break this block! block. Well, unless you want to be extremely satisfied. These amethyst blocks will instantly regenerate, and with an efficiency 10 pickaxe, you can break them very quickly. But what's even more broken was the end dimension on a snapshot. Entering the end would show random blocks scattered everywhere and missing chunks out of the island. Trying the nether wasn't any better. It had the same corrupted terrain. This happened when you joined a server on 12W49A. Can 1 pixel of water save you? If you place down chests like so, you can make it so only a pixel of water is touching the player. Then if you drop down from the sky, you'll actually be able to live. The water can be exchanged out with a cobweb which can save you from a fall as well. But how about a pixel of honey? Surprisingly, yes. It almost looks like you're just landing on the ground though. If you use a debug stick in one side of a double chest, it will create this glitched texture. Or you can debug stick the bottom side of a door to create an illegal door. Can 1 pixel of powdered snow kill you? By building a setup with chests and a path block, you can find out. Walk to the edge and touch that tiny pixel of powdered snow and you'll still start to freeze. Can you spawn a wither underwater? Well, when you try to do so, you'll see the bubble beams push the skulls right off. Even if you manage to place all 3 down quick enough, it won't work. You'll have to build a small room to spawn the wither, and the wither actually doesn't drown, so it'll just swim around and take out all the ocean mobs. You're able to send entities like boats and sheep through the end portal. Dream even sent primed TNT through it to explode hunters. However, one projectile you might not suspect is dripstone. If you drop a huge dripstone like this into the end portal and go through it, the dripstone will load in and end up killing you. If you give yourself a negative experience, nothing will happen in your hotbar. However, what you can do instead is summon negative XP orbs, and if you're holding a mending tool, it'll actually take away the durability. Given enough negative orbs, your gear can even get a negative durability. You can create a satisfying arrow launcher. Just shoot a few dispensers downwards, break the blocks letting the arrows fall, and once you flick the lever, all the arrows will fly upwards. If you connect it to a redstone clock, the arrows can even be juggled up and down. However, for ultimate satisfaction, place a TNT and light it to send all the arrows flying away. Silverfish love to be annoying, so I trapped a ton of them in this obsidian box, and pressing this button will explode them all. These pests are the worst. Sand normally falls down, but if you place them on torches, they'll float. You can stack them up really high, and once you have a pattern you're satisfied with, just break the bottom torch and watch it all crumble down. How small can you make your hitbox? The player's hitbox is roughly 1.8 blocks tall while standing, and by crouching, you can bring it down to 1.5 blocks. However, the hitbox can get much smaller. If you enter your swimming animation or fly with an elytra, your hitbox will only be 0.6 blocks tall, but you can still get smaller. If you enter a bed, the player's hitbox will be only 0.2 blocks tall and is located inside the player's head. This makes it so you can't hit a player in a bed unless you aim for the center of their head. This is an illegal sign, and it was made completely in survival mode. Signs normally have a character limit of 15 characters per line, and it's impossible to write anymore. However, if you go to your language settings and change the font to force Unicode font, it will make all the text a little bit smaller. This way you can type up to 23 characters per line, and when you switch your language settings back to normal, the text will overflow. This insane feature also works on multiplayer servers. Torches have to be attached to a block or they'll break. However, using commands, we can fill a large section of torches floating in the air. This can also be done with beds and even doors. Redstone can be surprisingly satisfying. This is a minecart wave machine. It uses slime blocks and repeaters to bounce up minecarts in a beautiful pattern. What's even better is you can exchange the minecarts for villagers and terrorize them. What if you throw an ender pearl before sleeping? Will you be teleported out of the bed, or will you just keep on sleeping? I tried it by throwing a pearl and getting in my bed super quickly. However, when the pearl landed, nothing happened, and I just kept sleeping until morning. If a zombie drowns underwater, it transforms into a drowned. But what happens if the giant mob drowns? Since it looks like a bigger version of a zombie, you might expect it to turn into a giant drowned. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. The giant simply dies. Can an enderman teleport across the world border? You can test it by shrinking the border, replacing the floor with water and placing the enderman on a single block. Then break the block, and the enderman will teleport outside the border. But can it walk through the border to attack you? If you stare at the enderman from the other side, it'll charge at you but get stopped by the border. However, after a moment, it'll just teleport through and finish the job. By quickly entering and leaving a boat, you can actually trick the game and make it lose track of where you are. You can wander across your entire world world. But if you shift, you'll be teleported right back to the boat. This only worked on older versions of multiplayer and gained notoriety when YouTuber Fundy performed it on a livestream. A fox attacks a chicken and a wolf attacks a fox. But what happens if a wolf is protecting the chicken? Spawn them all in and the fox and wolf will fight it out, with the wolf eventually saving the chicken. But what if the wolf and chicken are in a boat? This time the fox leaps past the wolf and takes down the chicken. Bedrock is the strongest block in all of Minecraft, but on this seed, a fossil generated, completely breaking through the world and revealing the void. What happens if you shoot fire charges through an end portal? Set up a bunch of dispensers, fire them off, and jump into the portal. On the other side, you'll just find the ground lit on fire. But what about arrows? When you fire them and go through, you'll see the arrows shooting out on the other side. My favorite though is shooting fireworks through. If you fire them from below the portal, they'll actually shoot up into the sky. This fight will never end. Dispensers with skulk sensors are positioned to shoot at each other. They'll keep taking turns firing snowballs and activating each other's sensors. To make sure the fight keeps going, you can even summon snowball items to funnel into the dispensers. What happens if realistic water collides with sponges? Let the water flow down and it seems there's still some water left. How about a sphere ball of water versus a sponge bowl? It seems like most of the water got taken out. What happens if you light an end portal with pistons inside? Well, as you might have expected, the pistons get completely deleted. If you glitch on top of the nether roof, it'll be a barren wasteland. However, on a 1.16 snapshot, crimson trees actually generated up here, so you could build tools and even a nice house. There's a way to duplicate dragon's breath. If you look up at the dragon while it's perched and spam right-click using bottles, the breath would end up spreading all throughout the end island. You'd have enough dragon breath for years. If you build two end portals side by side and light up all the frame blocks, will both portals be activated? When you place the final eye, only one of them gets lit. You can change which one activates by changing the orientation of the middle blocks. When your tools hit 0 durability, they break. So how does this item exist? Mobs equipped with gear have a small chance to drop 0 durability items. Mojang even knows about this and said they won't fix it. Which dripstone do you think will do more damage? A giant dripstone or a tiny one? If you drop the first dripstone, the villager somehow survives, but dropping the second one actually kills the villager. What's going on is actually quite simple. Dripstone damage is calculated based on how high it falls from and not how long the dripstone is. This version of Minecraft is dangerous. Dying in a nether portal would make it so you can never click respawn. Even if you restart your game, the respawn buttons will still be grayed out. To fix this, you just had to update your world. Will a healing arrow heal you if you have half a heart? Release the arrow and nope. But if you wear a leather helmet, it will protect you just enough and the healing arrow will work. When you slept with blocks on top of you, your sleeping position would just move to the ground next to the bed. However, this has since been fixed, and now you can't enter the bed and get an error message. However, by exchanging the full blocks for something like an enchanting table, you can still enter the bed and you'll see books floating above while you sleep. You can break Minecraft with just a trapdoor. Although a fairly simple block, there actually isn't a limit to how fast you can open and close it. So by using an extremely fast auto clicker, you can toggle the trapdoor and create a super loud sound. The same can also be done on bells to create a ring that can be heard from miles away. Will Thorns 1 million work on a shield? The answer is pretty strange. When a zombie attacks and you block with your shield, the Thorns enchantment doesn't trigger. But once you lower the shield, the zombie instantly dies. That's because just holding an item with thorns can affect mobs. Even holding a regular Thorns chestplate will damage mobs when they attack you. What happens if you drown a zombie villager, zombified piglin, and husk? Will they turn them into a drowned? At first, nothing seems to happen, but after a while, the husk transforms into a regular zombie, and then eventually into a drowned. Meanwhile, the zombie villager and zombified piglin are completely unfazed by the water. They just keep swimming around. Zombies aren't the smartest. Once a zombie locks on a target, he'll never give up. There can even be closer villagers nearby, and he still won't care. If you create a copper-only world and increase your random tick speed, all the copper blocks around you will oxidize super quickly. At the edges of your world, you'll even see the oxidized copper spreading like a virus to normal copper. The gradient looks pretty. Zombies take damage from healing potions, so it makes you wonder, will a totem of undying work on it? If we kill the zombie, the totem will pop and it will save the zombie. Hooray! Is staying in water and lava safe? Place down water, lava, and chests like so. Then when you let the water push you to the pixel of lava, you'll still catch on fire. Okay, maybe we need some more water. If we upgrade our setup like so, this will surely protect us, right? Nope, we're somehow drowning and burning at the same time. Are you kidding me? Bruh. You can make nether portals up to 23 by 23 blocks large. But what will happen if two portals are crossed? Well, it'd be pretty cool for both portals to be activated. Mojang coded it in so only one of the portals rails turns on. How are these rails floating in the air? There aren't any barrier blocks or anything in between, but it was done using sticky pistons. Minecart rails can be elevated if you pull up the middle rail. It looks pretty cursed and is a pretty harmless way to break Minecraft. A splash water bottle will put out a fire, campfire, and candles. But for some reason, if you throw a ton at a torch, it'll continue to stay lit. The easiest way to make a wave machine is just by using a few powered rails and minecarts. It's already pretty satisfying, but you can level it up by extending it many layers, and you'll get a much better wave. When you log off while riding a boat, does the boat log off with you? I joined a LAN world, got on a boat, and then logged off, and the boat actually logged off with the player. The same goes for other rideable entities like horses, where they disappear with the player. But what's even crazier is that on Snapshot 19W36A, fire, falling, and drowning damage were accidentally disabled by default. So by just changing your world to this version, you can become immune to all the elements without using any commands. What happens if you shear a Jeb sheep? It's constantly changing colors. So will it give you a random wool color? When you try to shear it, it ends up just giving you the wool of the original sheep color before it was named Jeb. Will this chicken parachute work? Since chickens fall slowly, it makes you wonder if they can slow your fall. To test it, I gathered a bunch of chickens and then jumped off a tall cliff. Unfortunately, this cool concept doesn't work, and I ended up just dying. But if you give yourself the slow falling effect, it makes it look like the chickens are actually doing something, and it looks pretty cool. How fast do you need to travel to not get burned by lava? Let's start with speed 30. Surely that's enough, right? Wrong! What about speed 50? Nope, but we're getting closer. After testing different speeds, you need at least 62 to run through lava without getting scorched. By dispensing diamonds at a wall of honey, they'll fall down in slow motion. The diamonds can then be routed back up with hoppers, so the items will drain down forever. Just watch out for pesky thieves. Hey, those are mine! What will move diamonds faster? An alley, hoppers, or water? Starting from 32 blocks away, the water stream will come in first, the hoppers second, and the alley was too far to even come. However, if we start from 16 blocks away, the alley is first, the water is second, and the hoppers third. I guess the alley is sort of useful. How do you make a sand wave? You can do this by creating a large area of bubble columns and then stacking up sand blocks in a similar diagonal pattern like this on top of signs. Once you break the bottom block, all the sand will fall in a bouncing wave. It's like a sand hot tub. If a chest is outside of the world border, it can't be opened. But what if half the chest is inside the border while the other half is outside? Surprisingly, you can still open it. Don't use this bed! On beta 1.6 pre-release 3, if you use a bed on a server, it'll prevent you from ever waking up. It's like a permanent nightmare. When breaking the top of a grass block, only dirt particles appear. This is because running and breaking particles uses only the bottom texture of the block. So next time you're sprinting on grass and only see dirt, you know why? Something very satisfying are automatic farms because they'll work forever without you. This melon farm is super satisfying to watch as the pistons break the melons and the items flow down. If a silverfish has poison, it will cause other nearby silverfish to break out. So if you create a huge area of infested blocks and throw poison at a few silverfish on top, instantly the bugs will all crawl out and the huge cube of silverfish blocks disappear in seconds. Can you craft using debug sticks? You can make a simple ladder with just 7 sticks. However, if you try doing so with debug sticks, it actually doesn't work. The reason why is simple. Although the debug stick looks like an enchanted stick, it's not. It just shares the same texture, but it has its entirely separate item ID. With the weakness 255 potion effect, you deal no damage at all because your attacks are too weak to register. So what happens if you swing a sharpness 255 sword while under weakness 255? First, without weakness, the sharpness 255 sword deals a massive 136 points of damage. But once weakness is applied, a normal netherite sword deals nothing. However, the sharpness 255 sword still packs a punch, hitting for 128 points of damage. Landing on dripstone will hurt a lot, and landing in water cancels all fall damage. But what will happen if you land on a waterlogged dripstone? There are 2 possible outcomes. In Java Edition, the water will protect you, and you'll take no damage at all. But in Bedrock, you'll still get hurt by the pointy dripstone. Iron golems will take down zombies, but will it attack a giant? Giants have no AI and just stand there. But unexpectedly, the iron golem will try to kill the giant. This is because giants are classified as hostile creatures by the game's code. If you place a bed underwater and bring a villager down, it can actually fall asleep here. But you can make it even weirder. If you put the bed surrounded by lava, the villager can somehow get in too. While the villager is sleeping, you can pour lava over its face and it'll sleep like an angel. But once it turns morning, the villager won't be very happy. Can waterlogged leaves save a villager? I encased a villager in a few waterlogged leaves and lit this massive area of TNT. After the explosion, I checked on the villager. and he actually survived. Somehow, tree leaves can protect a villager from a nuclear blast. Can a Vindicator attack a villager surrounded by rails? Nope, the Vindicator isn't very smart. What if the villager is surrounded by trapdoors? The Vindicator runs straight into the void, unable to tell the trapdoors are flipped. For something even funnier, try surrounding a villager with pistons and pressure plates. The Vindicators will charge at the villager, but end up activating the pistons instead, running around in circles, trying to find a way in, and never succeeding. Can iron golems see invisible zombies? Golems will normally come after and attack zombies. However, if you splash a zombie with invisibility, the golem will just ignore it. Well, until the zombie attacks him. Then the zombie will get destroyed! Which bed will the villager choose? Set the time to night and the villager will run towards the soul sand bed first. But if we rotate the setup, it will actually head to a different bed. The villager seems to always be choosing the bed that's northmost. Check out this Minecraft furnace. Notice anything strange? Well, the furnace's orientation is constantly changing in weird ways. This is because minecarts are hard-coded to face only south and east, so the orientation flips the wrong way when changing directions. The same thing happens with minecart chests, where the front of the chest strangely swaps orientations when making turns. Goats can parkour? Turns out every once in a while, goats will jump and can easily cross 4-block gaps. But what's even more satisfying is that when you build an entire grid of goats, and by running this command, the goats will all jump across. Mwahaha! Keep jumping! Snowballs don't do any damage, and their entire purpose is to just deal knockback. However, they're actually broken. If you launch snowballs out of a dispenser, it won't deal any knockback. The same goes for a couple other projectiles like eggs, fireworks, and potions of harming. Everyone knows evokers drop totems when killed, so here's a super cool MLG. Punch an evoker off a cliff and jump right after it. Just before you hit the ground, the evoker will drop the totem, saving you at the last second. Watching it in slow motion shows just how close you came to death. Here's how to break a fishing rod almost instantly. Just use an auto clicker with a fishing rod on a mob, and it'll cause the durability to melt down super quickly. You're able to shred through multiple fishing rods with this method. Not sure why you'd want to do this, but the option is here. Snowmen will burn in the nether, but will powdered snow save it? Powdered snow freezes all entities that enter it, so it makes sense for it to save the golem. However, try it out and you'll quickly learn the powdered snow won't help the golem at all. The only way the snow golem can live in the nether is if you give it fire resistance. How many armored wolves would it take to kill one warden? Let's first try with 5 armored wolves, and they all get slaughtered by the warden. Okay, what about 15 armored wolves? This time it's much closer, but the warden still slays the wolves. If you want to kill the warden, you'll need at least 17 armored wolves, just as long as you're okay with not all of them making it to the end of the fight. Scaffolding can be placed up to 6 blocks out from its base. However, you used to be able to break the game by clicking super quickly to create ghost scaffolding blocks. You could use this to walk further from the base. It's a client-side glitch, and from other players' perspectives, it looks like you're just fly hacking. Dream used this glitch to escape hunters who are trying to kill him. While most speedrunners use beds to quickly kill the Ender Dragon, there was a much quicker method. In 1.17, if you place an end crystal as soon as you entered the end, the dragon would instantly be killed. Wolves try to kill skeletons, but will they attack a skeleton horse? When you put them all together in the same cage, the wolf will kill the skeleton first, but then just leave the horse alone. This is a snowball lag machine. Snowmen try to shoot a zombie, but before the snowballs hit, they get carried into a storage area by soul sand bubbles. There is no limit to how many snowballs can build up, and it can break your world with lag. Saplings can't be grown when a block is on top of it. But what if I told you this wasn't true? Because if you place any type of log above the sapling, it'll still be able to grow right through. You can even have massive jungle trees growing straight through birch wood logs. Okay, this looks insane. The totem of undying is meant to save you from death, but does it work in the void? Jump in and nope, you'll still die. This is a TNT slide. Flick this lever to spawn a bunch of TNT. The TNT is special because it will never ignite. It will just gently flow down until it starts bouncing up and down. The wave almost looks like a really long snake, and when the TNT reaches the bottom, it'll drop off to the void. But what's even stranger is if you drop a feather on top of a drip leaf, it'll collapse. However, if you drop an anvil on top, it'll be perfectly fine. You can even jump on top of the anvil and the dripstone will still hold you up. How much water is in one bucket? This YouTuber tested it out by building a huge pyramid and then placing water at the top. A single water block was able to fill this entire area, which makes no sense. If you store a bunch of netherite in a shulker box and throw it into lava, the shulker box will be destroyed, but all the items will float back up to the surface. But for some reason, if you throw it at a cactus, the items just get destroyed. My netherite! Can you MLG with a nether portal? It takes 4 seconds to go through one, so you'll need to build a really tall portal. Lighting it it with flint and steel won't work. You'll have to use commands to create the portal blocks. Then if you jump from the top, you'll enter the nether before hitting the ground. However, your momentum will carry over and you'll still die. What if projectiles could bounce off slime blocks? Well, this mod makes it work. You can bounce arrows around corners or even throw ender pearls against walls. But what I love most is bouncing snowballs off close walls. They'll bounce back and forth rapidly. You can also toss a lot of potions to create these amazing curves. This is a giant crop pyramid. If you increase a random tick speed, the crops will grow super fast, and it's incredibly satisfying to watch the pyramid change colors. But it gets even better. Once everything is fully grown, place water at the top and watch as it cascades down, crushing the crops row by row. Minecraft options won't go over a certain number, but with the sliders and limited mod, we can change the options to go even higher. Want a render distance of 0? Now you can! Well, how about an FOV over the limit? Your perspective will actually flip upside down. This mod completely breaks Minecraft's limits, and you can do some crazy things with it, even making light sources no longer work. Check out this new block. If we correctly angle ourselves, this tunnel looks like a strange alien block, but flying around it, we can clearly see the tunnel. Using this illusion perspective, we can also create tiny diamond blocks like this. Cute! If you rename a chest and an anvil, clicking into the GUI would show the new name. However, you can actually break this by renaming the chest to a super long name. Once you open it, you'll see the text spills outside of the screen. Who would win, 100 killer bunnies or 100 wolves? Normally, rabbits are helpless against wolves, but summon a killer rabbit and it'll fight back. Just spawn the bunnies and wolves, then open the barrier to start the battle. You'll quickly see it's not even close. The wolves dominate. But what about 200 killer bunnies versus 100 wolves? This time when the barrier drops, the fight is much closer. The wolves put up a strong fight, but in the end, the bunnies take the win. Placing a boat on a soul sand water beam will boost it into the sky, while placing it on top of magma bubbles makes it sink down to the bottom. So, what happens if you put a boat between the two? The boat tries to sink and float at the same time, ending up just hovering slightly below the water. Can a single pixel of water drown you? If you place chests and wall blocks like so, then jump into the water, you'll just get pushed upwards. Even using a trapdoor to force yourself into the water won't let you drown. That's because to drown, the entire upper half of your body needs to be submerged. As long as any part of your upper hip box is out of the water, you'll be able to breathe.